My guest in the studio is New Zealand-born actor Manu Bennett, who is now, he's pretty much firmly based in the US, but does spend time in New Zealand. He's popped back to Wellington for the ARMAGEDDON EXPO, which is an event on at Westpac Stadium from this Saturday through to Monday for the holiday weekend. Now, Manu's best known for his portrayal as gladiator Crixus in Spartacus, and he now plays, and you might recognise the name, Slade Wilson Deathstroke in the new TV2 series Arrow, which has proven to be very popular on our television screens. As I mentioned, he's back in Wellington for the Armageddon Expo, but he's very kindly popped in the studio for a chat. Very good morning to you, Manu.
Yeah, good morning, mate. Or as Slade Wilson would say, good morning, kid. You laughed over my kid bit.
Oh, did I? Sorry. Well, welcome back here. I mean, gee, you've as I said, that you're based in the US at the moment, mainly, are you?
Oh, look, I've been filming Arrow up in Canada in Vancouver for the last year and a half. But I've been coming back. I'm still involved in The Hobbit. So, like in 4 weeks' time or 5 weeks' time, I'm coming back again to shoot with Peter. And I play the character of AZOG, who's all shot in green screen, and one of those suits that Andy Serkis wore, one of those little tight lycra suits. I mean, it makes you feel very strange when you're playing a giant orc and you're dressed like somebody at a weird German party. But it's a fascinating process, and then just coming back and gearing up for that, and of course the third and final Hobbit movie. It'll come out at the end of the year. Between that and Arrow and also Spartacus just got released in America on Sci-Fi Channel, so it's going to network instead of being on pay-per-view. So the audience is going to quadruple, which is going to be interesting because it's like a rebirth of the whole show again.
Now you've just returned to Wellington to New Zealand. I think did you say the first time in about a year?
Yeah, I got back last week, and I'm completely oblivious to how big Arrow's gotten here. But I went to a restaurant last night, and the chef and the waitress were like, "Oh, you're an Arrow," and I'm kind of like, "Well, it's here in New Zealand, and it's going well as well." Being offshore for so long, it's interesting to come back and do a show like Armageddon because we're going to have thousands of people coming through this convention centre down in Wellington down here, and it's my country, so it'll be the first time I'm speaking about the show to fellow New Zealanders, so it's going to be interesting.
I must ask you, I mean, you've been through all sorts of shows as part of your acting career here in New Zealand, and now you've gone and made a real name for yourself over in other parts of the world. How hard is it as a Kiwi to get out of New Zealand and then make a name for yourself in a place like America?
It's very difficult. I'm always talking to New Zealand actors who are wanting to take that jump, and there's almost like this sort of missing link between getting the actors there, because we've got great actors in this country. I'm spending time doing these conventions in America, and I've been sidelining up against Carl Urban, and Carl and I have spoken about this, thinking like, wow, it's you do your gigs here, and then that one bridge to get you across there. I don't know, because the Australian actors are doing so well across there as well. And the New Zealanders are just shadowing them a little bit, but they're starting to come through. So, it's up to it's now my responsibility, as it is Carl's, as it is Tim Morrison and Cliff Curtis and all these great actors from this country, to actually sort of keep making our roles work, and then of course that's going to keep the studios over there going like, "Where are you from, New Zealand?" Oh wow, we got to keep an eye out for you actors,
And when people think of New Zealand over in the US, is it solely Lord of the Rings? I mean, that's what springs into people's minds.
It does, but that's a great thing to have happened, And when you watch that giant dragon flying into LAX on the side of the Air New Zealand planes, it's something for us to be hugely proud of. But it is these leaps for actors like myself who started off on Shortland Street over here. I ran into John Barnett, who was the head of South Pacific Pictures, who produced Shortland Street at the airport on the way down here, just coincidentally enough. Yeah. And, he looked at me, and it was like he was looking at, Wacko Jacko from the episodes back on Shortland Street. And he went, "Manu, it's amazing just how far the journey's gone, hey?" Yeah. And, when I look at someone like him, or I look at Rob Tappert, who produced Xena and Hercules over here and gave me my very first break on Xena, and then I look at, he then produced Spartacus. The growth aspects for the ability for our actors or any of our practitioners to go through the system here and get there, it's all here. I guess we just get stronger and stronger. We're being this far down south in the hemisphere is the gap is closing. Yeah,
great. And in terms of working on productions like Spartacus and Arrow, can you explain to us, as an actor in those shows, how relentless it is almost in terms of how many hours you work a day? Is it just day after day after day?
You know, it can vary. I mean, you know, there's always sort of focus shifts on characters in series, and you know, so one week you'll be working every day, the next week you'll be working one day. The important thing is to always just treat that every moment that you have in front of the camera as as your next opportunity to get better. You know, people often ask me, because Spartacus was such a good show and it was shot here in New Zealand, and you know, going up to Vancouver to shoot Arrow, my role wasn't as specifically as full on as what Crixus was, but you know, in my heart and in my mind as an actor, I had to really adapt and make sure that this next step in my career opens me up to more the craft side of the industry. Because you know, as an artist, you can be an actor and have your feelings and do whatever you want as an actor, but then you have to realize that, you know, the big game, the big picture is about connecting to studios, connecting to the public. You know, I'm doing these conventions in America now, and you know, I go to next weekend I'm in Phoenix, and I'm in New York and Miami and all these different places. But like a band, like a rock band, when you go to these places, you start to instill within that local community, that particular chunk of America, a brand for yourself. And that's part of the big picture. And social media, that's all part of the big picture now, to connect to the public. And it's not bad for you know, someone from Rotorua.
Yes, absolutely. And as I mean, just on the Armageddon Expo, you know, the idea. I mean, you'd have the crowds that would flock along to meet you at these kind of expos in the US, where you know there's this very, very strong belief in those type of programs. Have you noticed it here as well? You know,
this is my first time to be part of Armageddon. I'm here with two of my co-actors from Arrow, and you know, the guy who plays Diggle and the guy who plays Deadshot, and I mean they're great guys, great American actors, and you know, it'll be interesting because I'm one of the home sort of crew. It's going to be interesting to see you know, just how much reception I get in comparison to my American co-stars. Just because everyone will go like, oh, he's a New Zealander, you know. Yeah. But you know, at the same time, you know, they'll see how, you know, an actor like me from New Zealand is there alongside these American stars, and it's because we appear on the same show. But the one thing about Armageddon, which is obviously great, like every other convention, is that, you know, if you're a person who wants to go along and see celebrity or know a bit more about how the film industry or Hollywood works, usually you're kept away by security guards on the side of a red carpet. These Armageddons or these conventions are all about really coming along and hearing so much more about the industry and meeting, you know, a lot of the celebrities that you watch on the screen face to face and having a one-on-one conversation, which is a dream, you know, for some people. If you're a really, really avid fan, to actually be able to meet that person face to face and even have a conversation with them and, you know, have a selfie with you, it's huge. Look, it is, mate. I mean, you know, I remember as a kid, you know, lining up to see a guy called David Gallipalil, who was an Aboriginal guy in a movie called Storm Boy, and he was meant to be in a hotel, and he never even came downstairs. Yeah. But I remember just waiting in the foyer, and every time I see a kid who comes up to the counter at these conventions, and you know, they're dressed up maybe as Slade Wilson with a little patch over their eye, I know that kid's looking at somebody who he sees as being so big on the screen, and you got to make that moment special for those people. But you know, the convention's also about, you know, the huge amount of paraphernalia and books and comics and all these things that come in alignment with the industry. You know, the Comic-Con started off as a bunch of geeks in a garage discussing comic books. But now that the movie studios and the TV shows like Arrow and you know, they're all, you know, all of this popular culture is coming to the fore. So, you know, and you know, they're just metaphors of society, and I think that people connect to those hero roles and those villain roles in a way that potentially is not talked about accurately on the news. You know, there's something true about it. You know, that you know, there's no persuasion. It's just what you take out of it. Yeah. And you know, it's interesting to be that part of popular culture, because the messages that are coming out of film and television these days are very strong. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming to Wellington for the event. I'm sure we've got people listening who'll be very keen, whether they're going themselves or their sons and daughters, the chance to meet you. And
look, it's going to be raining all weekend. If you want to be indoors and having some fun, come on down to Armageddon and meet some of your favourite TV and film stars.
Absolutely fantastic, mate. It's the Armageddon Expo on at Wellington here at Westpac Stadium from the Saturday through until Monday for the holiday weekend. Manu Bennett, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Don't miss the ultimate entertainment event, Armageddon Expo, as it hits Wellington. Meet international TV and movie stars from The Regular Show, Supernatural, Stargate, Ben 10, Percy Jackson films, and many more. huge collectibles and anime displays, live wrestling, J-pop music, incredible costume events, zombie attack areas, and more. Family fun not to be missed. Westpac Stadium, Wellington, Queen's Birthday Weekend. Tickets from Ticketek and at the door.